Please welcome President Bill Clinton, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back to Hardball. President Bill Clinton this week showed that he moves with equal ease from late show guest to political strategist. In fact, here's his advice to Democrats in this midterm.
I think that the Democrats ought to put on one card, no more than 5 and no fewer than 3 things that will be their priorities. We still got a chance here. We got 30 days to have an honest debate.
President Clinton is also an in-demand campaigner, especially for Democrats in some of the Midwest Rust Belt regions. Can he make the difference for Democrats? Howard Fineman is an MSNBC political analyst. Jim Vandehei is executive editor of Politico. Howard, let me start with you. Let's see. It is interesting to me to watch Bill Clinton, in essence, second-guessing some of the folks in the White House about strategy for this midterm. He's supportive of everything in the White House. I'm not saying he's being critical of them, but he's second-guessing the strategy when he, frankly, had the same problem in 1994, and there were people second-guessing, though not so publicly.
Yeah, there were. There was a whole generation of Kennedy people, for example, who thought they knew more about Washington and politics even than Bill Clinton did. There were some people on the Hill back in the days when Hill people were independent forces and not thought of just as appendages of their interest groups. And they were all saying, the Clintons are in over their head. They know what they're doing. They're not communicating. I think one of the things Bill Clinton should have said here, which he admitted elsewhere, is that when you get to become president, you assume in the first year or so that everybody's listening, that everybody understands, everybody knows your motives, everybody knows your successes and failures. That's not true, and it wasn't even true back then. And Bill Clinton learned after '94 that he had to campaign relentlessly to say what his accomplishments were and to say what his goals were, and that's what he's now telling Obama that Obama should do.
Hey, Jim Vandehei, your partner in crime over there at Politico, John Harris, of course, is maybe one of the best observers of Clinton, of Bill Clinton, and he's had a couple of tour de forces this week, and the one earlier this week where he pointed out, where he reported that Bill Clinton, he said it was repeating an adage about a transformation he thought Newt Gingrich delivered in 1994, which basically erases the Tip O'Neill all politics is local, when frankly he basically made you say, look, Newt Gingrich nationalized it, and guess what? He basically was saying all politics is nationalized now.
Right, which I think a lot of people on the Hill don't agree with. He's arguing that since that election, that they've all been essentially national elections, even for these congressional races. It's probably true this year, because I think the national issue is that there's a ton of frustration with the size and scope of government and that unemployment rate. And his advice, isn't that exotic or even that that original to say, hey, you got to come up with a couple ideas that resonate with voters. Like, no, duh, everybody knows they have to come up with something that's going to appeal to voters. The problem is that the clock is ticking. And there aren't that many Democrats who are ready to come back and say, hey, let's come up with 3 things that all of us agree on and see if we can't turn this into a national campaign. It's a little late in the game, I think, for that advice.
Howard, what is it, this Clinton advice, is it helpful to the Democrats right now to hear this, him going public like this, or is it something that, frankly, the folks in the Obama White House and folks running on the ballot this year are thinking, hey, big dog, we know you're a great political strategist, but don't go public now, please.
Yeah, it's kind of mixed. I think they would much rather at the White House that Bill Clinton was out there just campaigning and saying good things about Obama and saying that the Democrats holding the majority is important and getting out there and doing that rather than sounding like, Mike Shanahan, the coach of the Redskins. There's always been a mixed feeling and mixed emotions. Barack Obama in the 2008 campaign obviously was running against the Clintons. As president, he should be doing more to cite Bill Clinton's record and the Democrats' record from the 90s. He should be saying, look, this is what Democrats do. This is how we roll. This is what we did in the 90s, and we're going to do it again. But to do that, he has to retroactively praise the Clintons in a way that Barack Obama has never been comfortable doing. It's a mixed relationship. Obama should be bragging more about Clinton, and Clinton should be just out campaigning for Obama, not giving advice from the sidelines.
Well, here's President Clinton on the Tea Party, Jim. I want you to respond to it after.
In their purest form, the Tea Partiers are saying, I've been let down by big business, and big government. I want reform in both. But the funders of the Tea Party movement tend to be pretty far-right extremists who their goal is to destroy the power of government to mediate the power of corporations. And I don't really think that is a sustainable position.
You know, Jim, what's interesting to watch him diagnose this in the Tea Party, sort of to separate out the organizers from the grassroots. It reminded me, actually, I remember Bill Clinton did an interesting response one time to the phrase compassionate conservatism during the 2000 campaign, that it was clear he was trying to send a message to Al Gore. Here's how you respond to Bush. Gore didn't take it. This is where he's at his best, which is sort of being able to take to message for the Democratic parties in a way that usually Republicans are better at.
I think that's correct, and I actually think the way he could be most useful to Democrats in the final 5 weeks is actually to get out there and go fire up some of the Democrats. Because if you break down the polling, Democrats have some very acute problems with African American voters, working class voters. If you look at their level of enthusiasm, when you look at the crosstabs on these polls, it's low, and they have to figure out a way to reverse that. It's going to be low voter turnout, and I think he has proven in the past in that Pennsylvania special election not long ago that he's very effective in certain districts, in certain states, and Lord knows there's a ton out there where Democrats could use him, and I think that's where you'll see him play a bigger and bigger role. I think the messaging, I think it's just late for the messaging. I don't think you can change the agenda. You can't change the trajectory of the campaign. What you can change is, do you have the money, do you have the ads, and do you have people fired up at that moment when they're going to vote to actually get out there and do it.
Howard Fineman, very quickly before we go, Richard Nixon or Bill Clinton, who's been a better ex-president strategist, political strategist for their own party?
Probably Nixon so far. Let's see how Bill Clinton does in the last few weeks. And they also say, Chuck, that I'm joining the Huffington Post as senior political editor. I know you're probably confused about how else to identify me, but
I will do that
now.
You know what?
Okay.
I love a man with a lot of titles. I like guys with a lot of titles. Anyway,
well, I'm shedding some. I'm shedding some and adopting some. So.
All right. Well, Howard Fineman of the Huffington Post, an MSNBC political analyst, and all-around great guy, Jim Vandehei.
Thanks, John.
The better-looking half of Vanda Harris, right? Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Absolutely.
Tell Harris that, all right.
He gets the brains, I get the looks. I don't know about that.
Good deal. Thank you both.